Welcome back to In the Bach of My Mind, the podcast where visionaries, voice professionals, soul-led creators, and the curious stop playing small, not just by thinking different, feeling different, or sounding different, but by truly being and embodying the greatest version of the grandest vision they hold for themselves. Today, we're going to dive deep, so deep that by the time you finish listening, you may never look at your imagination or your thoughts or even your present circumstances the same way again. First, we're going to dive into Einstein, imagination, and planting the seeds of creation. Albert Einstein said in a 1929 interview, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited, and imagination encircles the world." Let that sink in, because Einstein wasn't a poet or a mystic. This was one of the greatest scientific minds in the history, saying that in essence, your imagination is pivotal to your life. Quantum physics are now reinforcing Einstein's wisdom. And Neville Goddard is widely known for the importance of using your imagination. Dr. Joe Dispenza writes in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself on page 15, "The quantum field contains a reality in which you are healthy, wealthy, and happy. You can use your mind as the observer to collapse quantum particles and organize a vast number of subatomic waves of probability into desired physical events called an experience of your life." What does that mean? It means that if you can imagine a future event based on your personal desires, then that reality already exists as one of the infinite possibilities in the quantum field. And it's just waiting for you to observe it. Well, how do you observe it? You ask. You observe it in your imagination. Isn't that exciting? And this is how people are doing what is referred to as quantum jumping their life or quantum leaping. They're focusing all of their attention in repeated ways and repeated daily efforts to observe themselves, both in imagination and in their lived reality, as already being who they desire to be. Being healthy, being wealthy. I was so confused by consciousness and all this talk of consciousness for so long, but I recently heard it best described in relationship to happiness. And that is what my book, Momentary Birth, is about. It's about shifting your mood in the moment into the now. You simply decide to be happy. And that is embodying the consciousness of happiness. What if you combine Einstein's insight on the power of imagination with the discipline of your inner voice, your outer voice, and your actions throughout the day? You will ultimately create your reality. Use the power of your mind to decide to be what you want. Be healthy. Be wealthy. How would you think or act if you already knew that you were in vibrant health? What would you do differently? Or what would you stop doing that you are currently doing just out of habit? How would you move your body? In the area of wealth, How would you think? How would you act or speak if you were already a millionaire? What would you start doing? And also think about, what would you stop doing? Make a list, not just of all the bills you would pay once you had the money, but of the joy that you would create. Would you travel? Where would you travel? Picture it. Smell the bread baking in the streets of Florence, or breathe in the ocean air by Santorini. Feel the fabrics in the Indian marketplace. Would you collect art? Picture the piece of art. Can you touch it? Feel the canvas? Would you buy a new home? Well, walk down its hallway in your imagination and run your hand along the beautiful countertops. Pick a lemon from your tree outside, slice it open, inhale the aroma, add it to your sparkling water. Would you express your love to other people with gifts when you have more money? See their smile, feel their gratitude, and let it move you deeply. Connect to the emotions, create it, and be in your imaginal acts as if you were there. Okay? Be there. Don't see yourself from the outside, but instead see your hands moving. Watch your feet. Let your imagination paint it as vividly as possible. And most importantly, feel how it would feel when you give up on being sad or frustrated and you finally say, okay, I'll just be happy. That is the consciousness of being. So you're going to be wealthy, be healthy. And here's the secret. You don't just do it once, you do it with consistency. Repetition is really the watering can for all of the seeds that you've planted in the quantum fields. Have faith that your order is already fulfilled, and now you simply await the divine timing for the delivery. David Cameron Gikandi writes in A Happy Pocket Full of Money, you live in an intelligent universe that matches your state of being. How exciting to know that your consciousness is such a powerful creative factor in your life. How exciting it is for you to see how science, neuroscience, can support the teachings of the great mystics and the laws of the universe. The universe is just waiting for you to become the observer, to influence the energy of all potential outcomes by you using your consciousness aligned to the probabilities, and that alignment brings them into physical matter. By observing your desire in your imagination, you're causing particles to manifest into experiences and events. I don't know about you, but this gets me super excited. I just love it when I understand things deeply, because for many years I read and I studied. I was intrigued by things about the laws of the universe, the law of attraction, the movie, The Secret. I said affirmations over and over and over. I would manifest and attract wonderful things into my life. But those big things, the big breakthroughs in wealth, well, I just assumed that I was doing it wrong. And I thought, I guess I just haven't figured it out yet. So I kept studying and I keep studying. And this is why I started this podcast. I was discovering books, authors, teachers, thought leaders like Dr. Joe Dispenza and Gikandi and Neville Goddard, who have helped me see things from a new perspective. And I realized that the patterns that I was living, it wasn't just random. They were based on my habits of repeated thoughts and repeated assumptions. And it was revealing to me that it wasn't completely aligned with my desired outcome. And this is why I started this podcast, to bring together my career knowledge of the voice, my deep love for spirituality, and the fascinating laws of the universe. Neville Goddard's way of decoding the Bible as a guide to consciousness, that really got me excited. And it's the thrilling revelations that we're seeing now in modern neuroscience. Each episode of this podcast is the bridge from knowing to being. And if you have been enjoying this journey, please share this episode with somebody that you know who would benefit from hearing it. And together, we can create a movement of conscious creators who don't just wish, they assume, they observe, they embody, they imagine their way to a better life. Thank you for listening, and remember that your imagination, it isn't a daydream. It's the birthplace of you creating your life. I'll see you again on the next episode of In the Bach of My Mind.